This is a short video about a common issue that we see is often a common cause of a variety of problems that can be avoided by following some basic electrical guidelines. The common cause is voltage leak from an AC adapter somewhere in the user's system. As we go through this video, please note that the adapter that might be causing the problems is not necessarily the adapter being used to power the camera, but it can be, and often is, an adapter somewhere else in the system. So what do we mean when we say an adapter has a power leak? Let's look at the problem. An AC adapter converts household 100 to 240 volts of alternating current into 12 to 20 volts of direct current for a device. Our cameras typically use 12 volts. Laptop computers may use anywhere from 16 to 20 volts. The actual output of an adapter is usually printed on it, but you can also measure it with a VOM, or voltage ohm meter. If we measure the DC voltage between the center pin and the ground shell, we see it's, let's say, 12 volts DC. But we can measure the AC voltage between the output of the adapter and a real ground, like a water pipe. We might find it's quite a bit higher. In fact, we have measured some 220 volt adapters leaking as much as 80 to 100 volts AC this way. This is very high. If you ever feel a tingling when you touch your laptop shell while it's plugged into an AC adapter, this is what you're feeling. Normally, up to about 30 volts is safe and you don't notice, but much higher and it can be annoying or even damaging to other devices. If the adapter is well designed, well grounded, then this leaking AC voltage is routed to ground and is harmless. Okay, so how can a voltage leak affect your imaging? Let's look at a simple imaging system. It consists of a camera and an adapter and a computer with its adapter. Most laptops have external adapters. Desktops sometimes have an external adapter, or it can be an internal supply. Also, there are now a variety of small computers that are meant to be installed at the telescope to control the scope, camera, guider, focuser, etc. These small computers also have external AC adapters. Unfortunately, some devices do not use a grounded plug. Other times, we might use one of those common 3-pin to 2-pin adapters to fit an extension cord or an outlet made only for 2 pins. But simply having an adapter with a 3-pin plug does not always assure a good ground. Internally, the ground connection may not be good, so there is no continuity of ground through the adapter. So what happens if one of these devices is not well grounded? In our simple system, if the camera adapter and computer adapter are both well grounded, then there's no voltage leak and the AC potential between the camera and the computer is 0. But what happens if the camera, let's say, is grounded and the computer's adapter has a voltage leak? What happens to the voltage? When we connect the camera to the computer with a USB cable, we also establish a ground connection between the two pieces of the system. The USB cable has separate conductors for ground, for carrying 5 volts, and for carrying signals. It's important that the ground connection is made first. Any voltage leak from the computer side of the system will seek a ground and will cross the USB cable and camera to find ground through the camera's adapter. This current, however, is not stable. It will fluctuate due to changes on the computer's side. The computer CPU may draw more or less current as it's used. The computer fan will turn on and off, sending spikes through the system. And don't forget the monitor has a power adapter, as does the mount for its motors. The situation can be made worse if the ground connections are unreliable or intermittent. You might see this if you jiggle a plug or a USB cable in its socket, for example. If a voltage leak cannot find a ground when devices are connected, it may cause a corruption of the signal in the USB cable, resulting in a CRC error that will manifest as a shift in part of the image. If the error occurs during a command, the command may be corrupted, and the result will be camera failure or disconnection. So, obviously, One way to avoid these kinds of problems is to ensure that all of the AC adapters in your system are well grounded. If you use a power strip, check the strip for continuity while it's unplugged. This is very simple to do with a voltage ohm meter. These meters are available on Amazon for as little as $10. You don't need a fancy one. Just make sure there's continuity between all the ground openings and the ground pin. Then, of course, it helps to make sure that the wall plug itself is well grounded. This can be checked easily as well with an inexpensive socket tester, also widely available at home improvement stores and online for $10 or less. You can measure the AC voltage leak between your computer and a real ground with a voltage ohm meter. You should do this especially if your computer has a two-prong plug. If you find a voltage leak from your computer, you can connect a ground wire between the computer's metal frame and the negative or ground side of the power port on the camera. This will at least ensure that the ground is not dependent on the USB cable connectors.